This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday today is for September 19th is a former NHL goalie who was actually picked first overall, which was a shock to a lot of people. He was the star goalie for the Islanders, the goalie that will remind them of Billy Smith and all that. He only played one team, and one team only, with the New York Islanders. He was given one of the most groundbreaking and overreactionary contracts in history, but it just made things worse for him when he kept getting injured and all that. They say he was a draft bust, and he actually is earning $1.5 million annually till 2029 from the New York Islanders because of a buyout. But anyway, this is Rick DiPietro, who's now 43 years old. He was born in Lewiston, Maine, moved to Massachusetts, and played in the Quebec International Pee Wee Hockey Tournament. He would play one season in the NCAA with Boston University. He faced off against St. Lawrence University in the regional final, but they lost in quadruple overtime. Boston University did, and failed to make the Final Four of the NCAA hockey tournament. He was named MVP of the Beanpot tournament, which brings the four Boston area schools: Boston College, Boston University, Harvard, and Clarkson, I think, right? Probably wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. It's Northeastern, not Clarkson. My mistake. Well, regardless of that, the Islanders had the number one pick in the 2000 draft and knew they needed something. So they found Rick DiPietro and said, let's keep him in America. Let's make him the number one overall pick. And he was. He was made to be Rick DiPietro. It was huge. DiPietro was highly touted for his mobility and puck handling skills. So anyhow, it was just unbelievable what could happen. He became the second goalie to be picked first overall since the draft started in 1963. The other one was Michel Place with the Habitants. Unfortunately for the Islanders, the Thrashers went second and took Danny Heatley, who was a star goal scorer, who was plagued with problems because he was the driver when Dan Snyder, his teammate, died in an automobile accident. Minnesota took Marian Gaborik third overall from Slovakia. So Gaborik was a pretty good player too. Scotty Hartnell went 6 to Nashville, and Henrik freaking Lundqvist went late in the 2000 draft, but yet he was way better than Rick DiPietro. Well, the Islanders needed to trade Roberto Luongo, and they traded him to Florida. And he did well with Florida. Then Luongo was traded to Vancouver, where he was superstar and even captain of the Canucks, and then went back to Florida. So DiPietro made a giant boo-boo. DiPietro started the season in the AHL and was called up twice to join the Islanders, but did not play till he faced off against the Sabres January 2001. He played 20 games, but he only won 3 of them for a struggling Islanders team, really struggling. He would only play 10 games the next season, but was called up permanently for the 2004 season once the Islanders got rid of Chris Osgood. So he did pretty well for the Islanders. And in the second season after the lockout ended, in September 2006, he shocked everyone by signing a 15-year, $67 million contract for the Islanders. The Islanders decided to give him a 15-year deal as early as 2005, but the NHL front office discouraged the Islanders from making a deal. So DiPietro signed a 1-year deal with the Islanders, but then got the 15-year, $67 million contract, which was big because then DiPietro could play till 2021. A lot of people thought that the Islanders were really putting all their eggs in the basket. Well, DiPietro's 15-year deal was almost surpassed by the Devils trying to sign Kovalchuk to a 17-year deal, which meant he was a Devil till 2027 in sense. But because of salary cap circumvention, it wasn't there. So DiPietro really had the longest contract. Regardless of that, DiPietro started suffering injuries. In March of 2007, he collided with Montreal forward Steve Bajan as DiPietro tried to poke check a puck at the blue line. He came back and had a concussion. He returned for 4 games, but then he suffered another concussion against the Rangers. He would play in the first round series for the Islanders against the Sabres. Now remember, the 2007 season was when the Islanders somehow in some way snuck their way to the number 8 seed of the Eastern Conference to face Buffalo in the playoffs, sinking both the Leafs and Habs at the same time. While the Leafs should have done better against the Islanders in those few games when the Islanders had to use Wade freaking Duplitz. DiPietro would have a torn labrum in his hip and had to go through surgery with that, and said he was a team leader and all of that. He was put in the 2008 All-Star game as a reserve, but was the starter when Martin Brodeur couldn't play. Unfortunately, DiPietro injured his hip during the shootout competition at the skills competition. And then once the Islanders were out of playoff contention, he decided to go get hip surgery. And then he told a satellite radio show that he was going to go through knee surgery in June 2008. So he had to miss the first 4 games of the other season. But in his 3rd game back from injury, he left after the first period for lower body injury. He had to have another knee surgery after injuring his meniscus. Although he came back for a few games, by January 2009 he was out, as he would miss the rest of the season with post-arthroscopic surgical swelling in his right knee. So he didn't play for the Islanders until January 2010 when he came back against the Dallas Stars. He had his 5th loss in 7 starts by February the 6th, but that was his last start. And then swelling in his left knee would make him miss the rest of the 2010 season. He was apparently healthy by 2011, but unfortunately, though, he was put on the IR again in December because of knee swelling. He was used as a backup, with Dwayne Rollison picking up speed as the Islanders goalie. However, despite Rollison's best efforts, by 2011, they traded Rollison to Tampa for DiPietro to get the starting job. And on February 2nd, 2011, DiPietro would have a goalie fight with Brent Johnson. Unfortunately, he was knocked out and had his jaw broken. Regardless of that, DiPietro would finish the season. He would have knee swelling and would be have a broken jaw. So he was put in a tandem for 2012 with Al Montoya and Gino Nabokov. DiPietro would take practice for the Islanders' 3rd game and took a shot to the mask from Brian Rolston, which concussed him. So anyway, DiPietro came back in late October. Unfortunately, he injured his groin and was out indefinitely and needed a hernia, which meant he was out for the remainder of the season. He only played 3 games in the shortened 2013 season for the Islanders and then was waived and sent to their AHL affiliate. He still had 8 years left on that massive deal. Unfortunately, though, he would give up 2 goals on the first 2 shots of the game, losing to the Connecticut Whale. He was known as Rickety. And the Islanders decided enough was enough. They would place DiPietro on unconditional waivers and have the remainder of his contract bought out on a compliance. No one took the bait, and the buyout was completed 2 days later. DiPietro agreeing to be paid 2/3 of the $36 million he was owed, so practically $24 million over the next 8 years at a rate of $1.5 million per year for the next 16 years. So practically, DiPietro would be paid $1.5 million every July 1st till 2029, and we're still 5 years away as of this taping. DiPietro had a contract with the Charlotte Checkers, who were the Carolina AHL team, but was cut in November. Then he decided to turn into radio broadcasting and is co-host of DiPietro and Rothenberg on ESPN New York 98.7, 6 to 10. And then he became an analyst for NHL games on ESPN. DiPietro was the #1 goalie for the U.S. in the 2006 Olympics in Torino. Unfortunately, though, he went 1-3. So in his career, he played 63 games in 2008 for the Islanders. That was the high point. Then he went 5, 8, 26, 8, 3. So that is 50 games. He only played 50 games past 2008. In 2008, he played 63 games in that one season. In his 318 games he actually played, he had 130 wins, 136 losses, and 8 shootout losses / ties. 16 shutouts. He was 2-7 in the playoffs as a goalie. He was 1-4 in 2004. He was the main goalie for the Islanders when they took on Tampa, and it was the main goalie for 07 Islanders when they took on Buffalo in the first round, but both early exits. So yeah, won an All-Star game. Is he a bust? I think so. That contract ruined him, and he only played 50 games in 5 seasons after that contract. Ugly. Anyhow, I'm Jeff, I'm going to do.